Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to High Vibin' It with Kelsey Aida and Lindsay Robinson. And today we have another lovely, no pun intended, guest for you guys, Alea. And she's basically another manifestation maven, another queen in the spiritual community. She has a podcast called Spiritual Shit. Is that the actual name? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Spiritual shit. So she's all about the woo-woo and the fun high vibe stuff that we like to talk about on our show sometimes too. So we thought she'd be a really great guest to have on. And today we kind of want to dive into some personal manifesting stories and how to really tap into that surrender part, which we all know is easier said than done. So we're going to dive into that for sure. Welcome, Alea. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. I always love to hear about like how the guest got into it. So what was your, I don't know, light bulb moment where you were just like, this is what I want to do?
As far as getting into podcasting?
Well, as far as like how long have you been in the spiritual space and like really kind of owning the manifesting part of it? Like, tell us about that.
So it started about 10 years ago. And anybody heard of The Secret?
Yeah. We had Joe Vitale on the show.
Oh, did you?
Shout out to Joe.
That's so cool. I love that. Just watching that, I had moved back from London after me and a boyfriend were about to break up and we couldn't figure out what to do about our visa and stuff. And I come back and I moved back in with some friends and I was like, I just was in the super low part of my life. And I felt really depressed and I was just having just a really hard time finding my identity again, you know? And so I guess I was at the gym one day and I just looked up I don't know what I was looking for. Actually, I don't remember what I searched, but The Secret came up and popped up. And I was like, what the heck is this? It was just a 10-minute video because at the time you couldn't find it on YouTube. And I was like, huh. And that was literally it. I went and watched the movie while I was on the treadmill, the whole thing. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is something I can get on board with. So I made myself, I was kind of like that first wave secreters, if you will. We were all like, okay, vision boards and manifest and this and that, which actually manifested into some very toxic positivity where I didn't allow myself to think negative thoughts. I didn't allow myself to, process any emotions or anything.
Right. That's the shadow side of all that when you don't.
The massive shadow part. Like, it was difficult because you're like, I'm an empath. Like I'm a very authentic person for the most part. And it just didn't feel like that was the whole story. And I was like, I just don't understand. So I probably spent a year or two in that space where I was like, okay, manifest. I had songs that I would play that I would listen to every morning that would or I would make something called a mind movie where I put pictures of things that I wanted to manifest and watch it every day or whatever. But I found that in some ways it worked, but in other ways it made me feel less satisfied with my life. And so following that time, I got married and entered into this incredibly toxic relationship that, narcissistic abuse and all different kinds of things where, again, I was still really searching for my identity and not really feeling like I knew who I was. Now, rewind, I come from a very hyper Christian background, very religious background, and there wasn't a lot of space to ask a lot of questions and a lot of space to just be who I was. I was naturally gifted psychically or mediumistically. I see ghosts and shit like that. So it was just such a weird space to be in and not feel like you fit. Mm-hmm. And so upon the ending of my marriage and finally okay, I got to leave this. This is toxic. This doesn't feel who I am or whatever. I had spurred upon what I would call another major awakening. And that was the best and hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life, ever. Just the kind of ripping away of what you thought your life was going to be and foundationally what you had set out and manifested for whatever. And I was like, good God, I don't understand why it didn't work. I thought I had manifested this marriage and I thought I had manifested this job. My photography business at the time was doing really well. And I was like, cool. I'd really gotten the hang of it. And then I had one thing after another, rug pull after another, just get pulled from underneath my feet. And I was like, this can't be it. This can't be it. So that was, sorry.
We're passionate over here.
Talking with your hands, knocking over the mic. I love it.
So there was just this moment of kind of, at the time I was living in New York City, and I would go outside and recognize that like I was picking up on people's energy, what they were saying, what they're thinking, what they were feeling. I knew stuff that was going on at home just from the thought. And I was like, I have to dig more into this. And I went across an article that said, you might be an empath if, and I was like, what's an empath? And just, I mean, it's like that kind of like synchronicity thing where things just kind of come to you and you're like, oh, that makes sense. It just came to me and it resonated, and I read through it and I was like, oh shit, this is it. This is who I am. This is why I can't go into grocery stores on Sundays with fluorescent lighting and tons of people around. You know, this is why I need to take so many baths and why I'm so exhausted and why I get sick all the time. And, you know, because I didn't understand boundaries yet. And then I started learning a shit ton about energy and started digging deeper into a lot of the metaphysical things because I was already experiencing things that I couldn't explain. And so I know that a lot of like my family members and or friends were like, Alea, like, you sure you're okay? Because I was experiencing some things that I just couldn't put words to. I didn't have the vocabulary for. And so in that following year, I made myself a student, and I read every goddamn book, every YouTube video that I could find on energy, manifestation, law of attraction, quantum physics, all of it, and really dug into all the teachers of The Secret and then expanded past them. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey. It was the beginning of me opening up to my own voice and my own gifts and really stepping into that power, which then transcended me needing necessarily gurus to go to get that type of guidance and or realizations, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and telling us the whole process. And also, I think it's so cool how many people have been activated by the movie The Secret. Yep. And also, I'm glad we touched on how that's not the full picture, because some spiritual teachers will poop on that movie and be like, oh, it's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. And like, I can understand their perspective. But honestly, like, you can't cover everything about the law of attraction in an hour documentary. They're just giving the general public a basic overview of here's a way to use universal energy to get more of what you would desire, which I think is an empowering in and of itself, but then it becomes too much where it becomes detrimental when you're like, oh, I can't think a negative thought. I can't feel a bad feeling. I have to just paste over everything with this fake positivity, which we all know doesn't work. And that just makes you feel worse in the long term. So everything in The Secret is true in the sense that you have to feel good to manifest what you want, but I've been defining feeling good as being in a state of non-resistance. So sometimes what feels best is to cry it out. Sometimes what feels best is to scream in your car. Sometimes what feels best is to jump in a lake. Like, it's not always going to look like happiness to live in a state of authenticity and feeling like you can express yourself and be really authentic, because honestly, like, authenticity is the new like enlightenment, because guruship and knowing how to feel peace all the time, like, we're here to be humans. Why would you try to escape your humanness and feel the same way 24/7? That just doesn't even make sense to me. That's honestly just a form of escapism, and that's where spirituality becomes a crutch and not an empowering tool anymore. So I'm glad that you touched on that and told us your journey with that, because I think anyone who's been excited about the idea of manifesting, at first it can definitely come from a space of lack and control freakiness and like, oh my God, I can get what I want if I just think about it a million times a day. This is amazing.
But what it does is it actually makes you feel that lack even more.
It can,
like when you don't have an awareness around that and there's no surrender, because you then, I'm thinking about it every day. Okay. It sets in that control frequency, which control is typically a lack frequency. It's a lack of control. It causes anxiety. There's a lot of worry around it. When is my thing going to come? The urgency says you don't have it now. So in that vibration, you create more of that, and there it goes. You don't have
saying what you don't want attracts what you don't.
And you're just causing unnecessary distress when you put so much pressure on yourself to micromanage every detail of your reality just because you can. Like, that's not the point. So the point is to feel empowered that you get to live your life by design, and you get to be intentional, and you get to go towards the things that you want, and that it's ultimately easier to attract them as opposed to force them or chase them, you know.
Right.
But it's important not to go too far off the deep end in the law of attraction 101, because then you start believing that you can't be all of who you are, because that's not positive enough, and then you're going to attract negative things.
It's a smaller box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, can we talk really quick? I know before we actually started the show, we talked about something really fun and enlightening would be to talk about the deep surrender that comes. And I know you mentioned it already once, deep surrender. I love that. I also love that you talked about toxic positivity. Oh my gosh, brain melted.
Really?
That was amazing. Because yes, absolutely. Me and Kelsey talk all the time. Like, don't expect yourself to feel like this all the time. But anyway, deep surrendering. Now I know for me, during this time right now with the pandemic and all of the stuff going on in the world, the needed evolutionary stuff that we as human beings need to go through. Take what you want from that, but that's how I feel like it's going right now. For me, it has been a state of deep surrender. No one has control over anything. Even the people that are in control don't know what the hell's going on. So where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to, who are we supposed to turn to? Us. What feels good to you? And I think right now is a really good opportunity. I'm so sorry, my baby. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
He's like a freaking banshee downstairs.
I'm hearing a screaming baby.
I'm sorry. He's almost 2 and he knows what he wants. But he's very, but I think now for me, especially judging from my own experience, I've had to have a sense of deep surrender. Like you can only plan tomorrow so much. And so with that comes this innate sense of what I at first translated was maybe helplessness, but now it was just recognizing that I gotta let the universe, God, whoever figure this out for me. And I have to be okay with that. And there's such a release that comes from that. If you're not tuning into just the fear. Have you found that this particular moment in time, us as humans, like it's become more of a knee-jerk reaction for that deep surrender? Like it's almost happening in spite of us?
I don't know, because I find that I'm listening to loads of people and they're yearning for normalcy again. And so they are essentially negating the surrender that needs to take place and trying to find any way possible that they can find normalcy and grasp onto that. So the things that they control are like things that you kind of laugh at, like, okay, my kids will eat this for lunch. You know, it's like you start to hang on to stuff because you want to have that satiation of feeling like you're in control, because that trumps your fear, like that natural fear that you have, that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to play out. For me particularly though, it was very different because I've already had quite a few years of forced surrender, that the universe is like, yo, you better learn this quick, because while everybody else is going through this thing, you need to be in this place. I didn't know that then, but I had 3 or 4 years of just rug pull after rug pull. And I was like, I mean, a divorce is a pretty big one. Losing my housing. There was a condo that I was staying in that they decided they were going to sell like last minute in New York. You know how hard it is to find a space in New York. Not only that, but like how much money you have to have up front to get one. So there was just like this turnover after turnover after turnover. And then I was supposed to move to Paris. I had a visa and everything. And there was this whole like mismatch with the schedule with the current place that I was staying. And they're like, you need to sign a new lease. And I was like, I literally will find out if I get my visa in about 3 or 4 days. And they don't want to wait. And I called the visa place and they're like, yeah, you'll get it. Don't worry. Da, da, da. And then I didn't get it. So then I was out of a place to live. And so I had to move back to Kansas City from New York. And I was talking to my guides about it. And I'm sure you guys talk about guides and stuff here. Yeah. And they were like, well, we had to do this so you would move. Like you weren't going to move otherwise. You keep asking for this thing or trying to give it to you. And I'm like, no, I was supposed to go here. And it's kind of a long story, but essentially I was trying to force something to happen, to have a type of life that I thought I would want. And when I landed back here in Kansas City, I was pissed. You know, it was like, well, fuck you, universe. I stopped talking to my guides. I stopped meditating or anything for like 3 or 4 months. And obviously that didn't feel good to me in my body, but I was mad. And I was just like, how is it possible that I did everything right and I'm still on my face? I'm still on the ground. Like, what's going on? So I took a year off, kind of like, okay, I'm going to let this year, sit and chill and whatever. And then I decided I'm going to go on a travel year, on a remote year. And I got to Bali. I stayed there for a couple months. I had a whole program for the whole year planned out, and then COVID hit. So I had to come back home and move back into the apartment building I just moved out of 2 months ago. And I was like, I'm going to kill someone. Like, it's just not even funny anymore. And I got to this space where I was like, okay, you win. I'm not fighting anymore. I'm not trying anymore. I'm not running anymore. You got it. What do you want from my life, universe? Fuck you, And I was just
that should be the title of your next podcast.
Yes.
Fuck you, universe.
Fuck you, universe. That's great. And I was mad because I wanted to control it. I wanted to like and get it. But then there's this Brianna Weiss quote, and I always butcher it, but essentially the idea is that when we're trying to create a picture for our life and what we think will make us happy, we're only recreating an image that we had in the past. So if we were supposed to go towards something that would be higher or better for our lives, we would never know what that was. We wouldn't know how to shoot for it. We only can emulate based on what we can see on Pinterest or whatever, but that we can visualize, or an example of places that we've been happy in the past. But if the universe is trying to bring you to a higher space, then you wouldn't know how to navigate that path at all. So you have to let go. And so one of my friends said, and he was like, and it rung in my ears. And he says, I'm going to stop kidding myself to think I know what's best for my life. And that hit me across the face. And I said, okay, you know what? That's another synchronicity. I'm going to take that. I am kidding myself to know I know what's best for my life. So universe, you have full control. And it wasn't this defeated energy anymore. Because at first it was like, fuck you, fine, I'm not doing anything, because a lot of people might hear that and think, well, we're not supposed to have goals. We're not supposed to have things like that. But no, it was, I've made the desires known in my heart, and now I can let them go. Because there's there's been a bunch of times where I didn't get what I wanted, and I've been really thankful that I didn't.
Yes.
So I found that once I did that, I put myself in this full surrender. Just a little background. I've since my divorce, it's been about 3 years. I've been trying to call in a soulmate, trying to call in the real deal. The relationship that I had prior was nothing anywhere close to anything that looked like love. And prior to that, I never had a really good boyfriend. All my boyfriends had cheated on me. So I had never really experienced what it was like to have real deep love. And I felt this pang in my heart every time I felt this sentence that said, no one's ever really loved me. And it just hurt. It was just this longing. And I was like, how can I get rid of this desire? I don't know how, and I remember when I got to that place of full surrender, I live in Kansas City. I'm a Black girl who is into spiritual shit in a Midwestern town
in Missouri, right?
Loads of people are very Christian and very white. So I'm thinking this is not a place I want to live, because I'm not going to find love here. I went to high school here. I went to middle school here. There was nobody who was interested in me. I went to college here. So I had this idea that I couldn't get what I wanted if I stayed here. And I was always trying to run somewhere else. And so my guide, I call her Karen, actually. It's funny. It's funnier now that all this stuff is blown up, but I've called her that for years.
Yeah.
And so her name begins with a K, but it's really hard to pronounce. And anyway, so she said to me, in the areas in which you thought it was the most possible, it's been impossible and nothing stuck. But perhaps in the areas in which you feel it's impossible, the most possibility lies. Allow the universe to show you the magic beyond what you can see. And that's not something I would say. I'm not that eloquent.
I was just gonna say, we just witnessed a channeled message, because the way that it just spilled out of you, that's incredible. I love that stuff.
It was magnificent, just to have that level of peace spoken into you that way, and for me to have trust and safety in knowing that me letting go wasn't gonna let me fall to the ground and crash. That there was this net there, and I said, okay, all right, I'll take my hands off of it. I'm going to release that. It was kind of a moment where the universe is like, here, hold my beer, let me show you what I can do. He said, you can't meet anybody here, so guess what? And I meet this man who makes me emotional thinking about it, because it is like he was designed for me. It is weird. He's super into spiritual stuff. He knows all of the theologies and philosophies, and we can talk for hours about that shit. and like we're on the same page, like just on so many levels. And I thought, gosh, like I feel like I have pie on my face a little bit, because the universe is like, you kept trying to run, and we're just trying so hard to bring you this thing that you've been asking for. You just got to let go of what you think is best for your life. We're trying to give it to you, and here you are. This rug pull or this face plant that you think that is happening is us giving you what you want. So if you just chill the fuck out,
right,
we can give it to you. You won't have all this anguish and pain if you stop being a control freak. So yeah.
Oh, so how long have you guys been together? Let's build him up a little bit.
It is super early. It's like 2 months in, but it feels weird. We say it's not something that we've been saying, is like, oh yeah, like it's been like 2 months, and he's like, yeah, but for mortals it is. Because we have this like soul thing
in human like, time.
Yeah, there's this very soul tie connection. It was just like second date, like we were already like, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. Like it just, and I can't explain it because it sounds foolish, but like there was such a recognition when I saw him. Oh, and I'll tell you this part. When I went to Bali, because I had this whole like, why did I even go to Bali in the first place? I had to move and then I had to come back. I made some incredible connections there, and I healed a bunch of shit while I was there. My podcast took off while I was there. So I know that there was a reason I was there, but I had this Reiki session with a woman, and I asked her to help me clear my heart chakra. I was sure that there was a lot of pain or scarring that was still there that's keeping me from calling in love. And so she did her session or whatever, and I immediately took a nap afterwards because for some reason it made me really, really tired, and had this dream about this man who me and my sister were sitting on a monument of some sort, a whole bunch of stairs, and I could see this group of 8 black men walking below and one guy prominently in the front. And mind you, like this was in February, so the time that me and David met was when Black Lives Matter and all this stuff was really kicking up a lot more. And I should say it's year round. It's all year. It's every year. But in particular, so he in the dream, he came up the steps and he asked me if I was single. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you want? And because in the reading that we had prior, she had said that I was some upper echelon woman in a past life where I had to utilize my womanly guiles to get men to do things like politically or favors or whatever. And so in my karma in this life was that I always thought men were trying to use me for sex, which is what my experience was when I was dating. So anyway, so we go inside and mind you, we have on hoodies and Jordans and whatever. And we walk into this very Victorian, beautiful.
And this is still the dream, just to be clear.
This is the dream.
Okay. Got it.
So we did, and we started in this dance. It looked like something from Pride and Prejudice. Like, you like to put the hands together and they kind of dance around or whatever. It was weird and oddly erotic, but we didn't touch and whatever. So at the end of the dance, he says, would you join me in the back room? And I said, sure. So I joined him in this back room. It's all red. And he sits me down this settee and he has his hands behind his back like a butler. And he goes, would you like to have sex? And I was like, see, I knew it. You were going to be another one of those guys who da-da-da-da-da. And he was like, I wasn't finished. Would you like to have sex, or would you like your equal and capable partner? And I said, I want my equal and capable partner. And with that hand, he reaches out to me. He says, then wait for me. And so I woke up from that dream and I was like, oh shit, like it seems super, super prominent. So I went and looked for pictures to look like, so I didn't forget what he looked like. And I sent it to my friend who did the Reiki session. And I said, gosh, like I had this crazy dream, and told her all about it. And I was like, look at these pictures. This is what the guy looked like. We make no note of it. It's just that I felt psychically he was close. And so I'll show you the pictures after the show, but like, it is uncanny how much he looked like the combination of those two guys in that picture. And so when I met him and I saw him, there was this recognition, and I was like, oh shit, that's the guy from the fucking dream. Oh my God. So I was trying not to freak out and be too weird, so I didn't want to tell him, but then he tells me that he's a dream traveler.
Stop it.
Oh my gosh, no.
And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Okay, so next, right? You're same kind of weird. Let's do this. Yes. So next episode that we have you on, he's got to be there too. Yeah. Like we have to do a duel. Oh my God, that'd be so fun. That is such an incredible, like, and I know people listening will probably be like, oh my gosh, I had a dream like that too. Because that's incredible. Like, and I know that you cannot be the only person. I got goosebumps. Yeah. I don't know about you, Kels. That's a validation. Like that is nuts and so symbolic and so perfect. So you guys are like super happy. You're gonna have a bunch of babies
We'll see about that.
and live a super spiritual life forever, ever, ever, and ever.
I actually did have goosebumps when I was listening, so I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling it. And I'm a hopeless romantic, so of course I love stories like that. And I'm also like, well, if we're gonna use labels, like a psychic medium too. So I'm like, oh yeah,
there's a bunch of intuitives here.
Yeah, I'm totally resonating with everything you're saying.
Well, the bigger part was that I was so, you know how like when you want something, you're super hyper fixated on what it is, and you're looking for it all the time. And so I was in that space where I was like, okay, you know, where is this gonna be, whatever. But I still had this thing about me that I would ask every time I would go on a date and said, if this isn't the guy, let him cancel. If this isn't the person, let it be easy for me to know. I would pray and said, make it so glaringly apparent that this is the person that I can't mistake it. Like, make it easy. If there's any back and forth, does he like me? I don't know. Like, you know, the dumb text game. It's like, okay, 2 hours. Okay, texting me back at this time. I'll, you know, if it was any of that, I didn't want it. And so I said, just make it easy. So he stepped in and it was like immediately, he's like, I'm sure about you. I know I want this. I blah, blah, blah. This is like 2 days in. And I'm like, you need to slow down. And it was so easy. It's still so easy. He's got 2 kids and like, we're learning how to integrate those things. And it's just really easy. And I still find myself in places where I'm like, but how though? You love me? Like for real? You know, like I still find myself questioning those things. And the universe has been like, Alea, shut up. We finally gave you the thing. Don't question it.
It's definitely our human part, whether it's a relationship or, you know, a certain level of success you're at, or just anything that you felt at one point in your life was too good to be true or was impossible or was just out of reach. Yeah. Once you're in the shoes of the person that has it, you're like, when did this happen? How did this happen? Because we want to rationalize it. We want to make it make sense. And that is not the language of the universe. It's
None
just
of
like,
this makes sense. None of it.
No. And just, you know, that's another part of surrendering. Surrender the logic, surrender the path that got you here, and just be unbelievably grateful that you were capable enough, that you were up to the challenge, that you were up to that journey. Yeah. Wow. So cool.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to watch the extended version where you get the full podcast episode in a video format, just go to patreon.com/highvibe. The link is in the description. That's where you can become a supporter of the show, listen to all the episodes via video format, and each week you get extended versions of the show, meaning you get to see the pregame behind the scenes, and also you get an extended interview with whoever we're guesting, or if it's me and Lindsay, we usually pull cards for you guys, fun stuff like that. So go check it out. There's lots of cool goodies, including a free copy of my book, a free audio hypnosis from Lindsay. She's a hypnotherapist. And yeah, we just want to give you all the goods, all the content. So head over to patreon.com/highvibe to become a Patreon.
Or if you'd rather listen to the rest of this episode, head over to highvibinit.com, where you'll see all the links to everywhere that it's getting streamed. Click your favorite one and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.